Welcome to another episode of Legendary Leaders. I am happy to have you with me this week. We are talking about selling. And that's my question for you today. Are you selling? Now, no doubt, whenever I just said that, and I always throw this out here, anytime I talk about selling, people hear that word and they go, ugh, you know? And so maybe whenever you heard me say that, you were like, I don't want to talk about this. Maybe you even saw the title of this episode and you were like, no, I don't really want to listen to this one. We all have such an aversion to selling, especially I would say women more than men in general, but in general, most people on average have an aversion to selling because to us, it just seems sleazy, right? It just seems like we're making someone buy something that they don't want, they don't need, or that's not high quality, or, there's something wrong with it. That's what we feel like we're doing when we sell something. So today I want to talk about, are you selling? Because if you own a business, you have to sell. That's just the reality of it. And so I'm going to keep pushing you through this. I've done a lot of different episodes in the past about selling and what does that look like. I want to come back to that idea again. I want to hit some high points. I want to remind you about selling because here's the thing. We're sitting in the middle of March. We're marching forward, right? This year. We're in the third month of the year. And so if you aren't selling, the likelihood of you delivering to your financial goals this year, if you have any financial goals, which I expect you to have, you're not going to deliver to that if you aren't selling. So when I talk about selling, there's usually three things that people will say. Number one, when I say, are you selling? I'll have an amazing female leader say to me, well, Katrina, I don't really have anything to sell yet. So no, I'm not selling because I don't have anything to sell yet. So they think that, because they don't have a product or a service yet, they shouldn't be selling. I'm going to challenge that in just a second. The other response that I get is, absolutely, I'm selling all the time. I'm selling while I'm asleep. I have ads running. I have funnels working. I have email automations going out there. I am constantly selling. Okay. And then the other answer that I'll get is, well, maybe I'm selling. Like I have all this stuff working, but not actually generating any sales. So I don't know if I'm selling or not, right? And it's sort of that perplexing, I think I'm doing all the right things, but I'm not making any money. So am I selling or what am I doing, right? So again, keep this in mind. If you have a business, you have to sell. So let me tell you the two things that really matter when it comes to the mindset of selling. We have to adjust our mindset if we're going to end up selling and generating sales, okay? We have to do that. So what are the two things I want you to focus on? Well, if you answered in the number one category, hey, Katrina, I don't have a product to sell yet. I'm just getting started. I'm going to challenge you and come back and say, don't create your product yet. Don't create your service yet. Go ahead and start shopping it around. Who's your ideal client? Who do you want to sell your product or service to? Go out and start having conversations with them. See if they'd be interested in the product that you're coming up with, the ideas that you have. Because the key thing that most people do, okay, and I fell in the same boat too. I think most of the people who you will hear from at any point that's mentoring you and guiding you, they're going to tell you the mistakes that they made, right? That's like what a good mentor does. They prevent you from making those mistakes. Well, I went ahead and created everything that I thought would be amazing, that I thought my audience would need, and then come to find out it's not what they wanted or needed at all, right? And it didn't work quite right. And so I had to go back to the drawing board and create something again. But I spent all of this time creating my first product, right? The first idea that I had. And in reality, all I had to do is exactly what I'm telling you to do. Don't think that because you don't have a product, you can't sell. Go have those conversations. Start talking to your target audience. Start getting into the groups and having the conversations to say, well, if you have this problem, what would you want? How would you prefer it be solved? What would you buy? How much would you pay for it? What would you want? Ask those key questions and then go create your product, because at the end of the day, if you're having that conversation, you're going to end up saying, well, I appreciate your thoughts on that because I'm working on this thing that does da-da-da-da-da. And they'll be like, really? Well, count me in. I want to be a part of that. I want to buy one of those, or I want that service. And you've just sold it and you didn't even have it made yet. Okay? That's the place that you want to be in. So even though you don't have a service or a product created yet, you can still sell. That's number one. Number two, For the individual who says, I'm selling while I sleep, I've got the ads running, I've got the funnels going, I've got the email automation. I mean, I'm constantly communicating and putting an offer out there, a call to action so that people will step up and do something. That's awesome, and I love it. But my challenge to you there is, are you looking at your data? Are you getting customer feedback? What are you doing with it? What are your numbers showing? Could you be doing more? Could you be doing better? Out of all the emails that you're sending, which ones are getting the highest open rate? Which ones aren't being opened at all? Right? And so maybe you've got a great message in there. Maybe you're even offering a freebie in that email, but nobody's seeing it because your subject line is wrong. Think about all of these different things. Maybe you're selling while you sleep, and so you're thinking, I don't need to touch it. Like it's automated. It's on autopilot. It's doing okay. No. If you're selling, you're looking at your data, you're looking at the customer feedback, and you're saying to yourself, how can I get even better? How can I get even better? Okay, and I'm going to tell you what I mean by how can I get even better, because it's not about making more money. It's about being better at something else. And that's point number 2, but I'm going to get there in just a second. The third piece of point number 1 about, are you selling or are you not? And where are you in that process? Remember, the third option was, well, got stuff out there. I'm doing all the automated stuff. I'm having conversations. I'm not making any money. So I don't know if I'm selling or not. I think I am. Well, that's a great thing to ask yourself, because the whole point is, if you're not generating revenue from your efforts, then you need to adjust your efforts. Now, the revenue is not what ultimately matters in the long run within our hearts, right? We want to be fulfilled in serving, but to create a viable business, we have to generate revenue. And so that's how you measure if your business is viable or not, right? If it's doing well in the business world. And so if you're not generating revenue, something in your sales process isn't working. And so you're not really selling. You're attempting to sell, but the way I always describe being an entrepreneur and running a business is that you have a lock, right? It's a combination lock. And I'm not talking about the dial locks that we used to have in school when we were kids, where you dial it and you do it back and forth. I'm talking about a lock that's like this. And it's got all these different dials in front. You've got to line each one up until they all line up in the correct sequence, and then it pops open. That is the lock I'm talking about relative to a business. And when you line up all those numbers or letters or whatever it is that the lock has on it into the right sequence, then the lock's going to pop open. And if you are doing all the things that you think you know how to do, but you're not generating any sales, then something in the lock isn't lined up correctly. You haven't opened it yet. Okay, so you need to keep working at it. The combination that you've put in isn't quite right. You probably are close, but you're not 100%. And you and I both know that close doesn't open a lock. It's got to be precise. And so what you need to do is the same thing that I just recommended for the individual who has everything automated and they're generating sales, but they could always generate more. What are your email open rates? What are your hits look like? What is the views on your landing page? How are your ads working? Go back and look at all of your efforts and say, how can I do this better? How can I do this better? What am I missing? What do I need to adjust? What do I need to tweak? And then change one thing at a time. Don't go change 5 things at a time, because you don't know what would have worked and what wouldn't work. Go change one thing and then let it sit for a little bit and see if it helped. Okay, and then go, you got a little bit of a lift, okay, perfect. So that piece is probably adjusted, that number in the lock is probably right. Now let me go to the next thing, and you adjust the next piece, right? And so you just keep tweaking until you get everything lined up. But you can't change all the numbers at once on the lock. You've got to do one at a time. Okay, so that's my advice to you relative to the action that I want you to perform. Okay, you should be having conversations. You should be looking at your data. You should be learning from your customer. You should be making adjustments one at a time in order to figure out what's going to work best for the people that you're going to serve. And that leads me to point number 2 when it comes to selling. The thing that we talked about in the very beginning of this episode was about feeling just sleazy, not feeling good about generating a sale. Because why? Because when we think of salesmen or salespeople, we think of someone who is pushing something on someone that they don't want, pushing an inferior product, trying to make more money than what the product is worth, right? Upselling and doing all these different things. And so what I want you to ask yourself is that who you are? Are you creating a service or a product that someone doesn't want? Would you ever want someone to buy your service or product that didn't want it or that wouldn't benefit from it? Well, the answer is no, right? Are you trying to upsell and sell them things that they don't need? No. Are you selling an inferior product? No. Now, you may have imposter syndrome and think, well, why would they buy from me, or why would my product be any better than anybody else's? The answer is that there are people out there that are looking for you, the way that you've designed a service or a product. They're waiting on you. They are your customer. They need what you're bringing. So it's not about the inferiority and all the ideas that you have in your head that maybe mine is not quite as good. It is for what they need. It's just fine, I promise. Okay, we all have to work through that. And the reason why I can tell you all of these things is, number one, you're looking in yourself and saying, well, that's not who I am and that's not what I'm doing. And that helps, okay? But the other thing that will get you through and will help you really generate sales is simply shifting the idea from I've got to make money to I've got to help these people. I have to help. I'm here to help. I started this business not to make money because, again, I could stay in the corporate world and make money. I started this business because it's my passion. I want to help other people with my service or my product. And when you come at it through a lens of helping, knowing that they need what you have, it makes life so much easier. Then you're not the sleazy car salesman. You are the CEO, the founder, the business leader that is the advocate for your client, your target audience, the people who are waiting for you to bring to them whatever it is that you're bringing to the market. Okay? So those are the two things. Go ahead and be selling every single day, looking at the data, making adjustments, and then realizing that selling is serving. And Dean Graziosi says that all the time. Selling is serving. If you can make that shift in your brain, selling is going to be so easy because we all want to serve. And serving is the best place to be. So, are you selling? And if you're not, let's get started today. Go and be legendary.